Hey guys, white balance. So white balance is going to be your foundation for easy and accurate color editing. It's the most important thing you can do if you want to learn how to get accurate colors, if you want your colors to look really beautiful and balanced. If you're a new photographer, this is so important. I want to do a teaching on this because this is something a lot of new photographers struggle with. I've noticed when I look online and look at images. And this is something I definitely struggled with early on. It took me over a year to figure out how to set my white balance properly. And because of that, I really struggled with my color editing. I could never get my colors to look right. So I want to take you guys through this. I want you to really understand the principles behind this so you can avoid my mistakes and get some great colors. And don't underestimate learning the foundational things when it comes to editing in Lightroom. If you're like me, when I was a new photographer, I really wanted to jump ahead. I wanted to learn all these advanced techniques like the pros. I was excited to learn. And that's great. It's great to be excited, but do not skip ahead with these foundational principles. And white balance is definitely one of the foundations of editing that you want to learn. So if you just take a little bit of extra time to learn this, it will really save you time in the end. So that's why I want to do a teaching on this. And I'm going to use this photo as an example. This photo was taken at Big Creek in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, one of my favorite places to shoot. I love this area. So this photo here, this is my final white balance edit. I have the colors looking the way I want them right here. But I want to take you back to my original white balance in camera. So I'm going to left click on temperature and left click on tint, and this will take you back. So I want to go through and explain a little bit why I struggled so much because I think it'll help you guys. So this photo was taken quite a few years ago, back when I didn't know what I was doing with white balance. And as you can see, the colors are clearly off. There's a warm yellow color cast. Things don't look right. And the reason I would get these results is back then I would use these in-camera presets, these white balance presets. So this particular day I was probably using the shade or the cloudy preset, and because of that I got this warm yellow color cast. So what I do now, and I highly recommend you guys do this, do not use any presets. It's just going to complicate things. When you're in the field, you don't want to be worried about how to set the white balance. You don't want to worry about, what's the white balance I need for this scene. It's just going to waste your time. You want to focus on getting that great composition. So the best way to do it, the easiest way, is just set your camera to automatic white balance. Let the camera make the decision, and it will usually get it pretty close to correct. And if it's off, you can always go back and fix it in Lightroom. And if you shoot in RAW, you're not going to lose any quality. So you want to shoot in RAW and set it to automatic white balance. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's look at this photo. So I want to take you back to my mindset when I first uploaded this photo years ago. And the problem I had back then is I knew the colors were off. Like, I could look at this photo, I could tell the colors were off, but I did not know that it was my white balance. I assumed that my camera got the white balance correct. So I thought, oh, the white balance is fine. But I knew the colors were off. So what I would do, and this is what you don't want to do, I would go down and try to fix the improper colors with the hue sliders. I would endlessly fiddle around with these hue sliders trying to fix the colors, but it never worked. I would go down to the calibration hue sliders, and I would waste so much time trying to fix the colors. But it was just a lost cause because you cannot fix an improper white balance with the hue sliders. The hue sliders are not designed to fix an improper white balance. You have to go back and get it correct to begin with. You have to get that foundation to start with before you start doing any more advanced color editing. So yeah, you do not want to jump ahead and do advanced. You don't want to try to jump in and do color grading or fiddling around with individual hue sliders until you learn how to get that white balance set to begin with. It will save you lots of time. All right. So actually, before we go any further, I'm going to take the orange hue slider back down. And ordinarily, I would edit the white balance first before I do any individual like hue slider adjustments. But because I'm doing this tutorial, I want you guys to be able to see the orange clearly just for the purposes of this teaching. But like I said, ordinarily I wouldn't do this. I'll explain more as we go along. All right, so how do we fix this? I'm going to take you through, now I'm going to go into some depth with this because it's important to understand the principles of why this works. So that way, when you become more advanced and you start editing, doing creative white balance edits where you adjust things, it will really help you to understand the reason why things are working the way they are. All right, so let's start with the temperature slider. Now, white balance is also known as color balance, and these two terms, white balance and color balance, basically describe the same thing in different ways, and I'll explain that more as we go along. Lightroom uses the term white balance, so the white balance panel here consists of your temperature slider and your tint slider. So let's start with the tint slider, or I'm sorry, the temperature slider. So the temperature slider consists of two colors. To the right, you have your warm yellows. To the left, you have your cool blues. So I'm going to go all the way down to the left. I want to give you guys extreme examples to begin with because it will really help you to understand the principles behind this. So if I go all the way down to the left, let me get a little bit of water. So if I go all the way down to the left, you can see the colors look really horrible. This is obviously not what you want. There's a strong blue color cast. And what I mean by color cast is the blue is bleeding over into all the colors. The blue is dominating and there's no color separation. If I zoom in here to where, let me get 100% here. If I zoom in to where the yellow and green are, it's hard to see any clear transition between the green and the yellow because the blue is bleeding over. And there's orange over here, but it's hard to see the orange because of the blue. The white looks blue. So blue's just dominating, right? If I go to the right, all the way to the yellow side, we have the same problem with yellow. We have a strong yellow color cast. The yellow's dominating. There's no clear color transition or color separation between the colors. So the idea when you're editing the temperature slider is to find a balance. You want something in between where the blue or the yellow is not dominating. Everything's balanced to where there's not a color cast one way or the other. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to hold down Shift and left click on temperature. And Lightroom is going to give me an approximation of what it thinks is a good balance between the yellow and the blue here. So again, if you hold down Shift, left click on temperature, Lightroom will give me 40-50. And I'm actually going to warm it up a little bit. I'm going to go up to 4150. And I'll explain more as I go along why I make these individual adjustments. But if you see here, things are starting to look a lot better. If I zoom in, I can see a clear transition between the green and the yellow. You can clearly see the orange, and the white is looking basically white. It's not looking blue or overly yellow. And as far as the colors, if you look at the colors, that's what's meant as color balance. As far as the colors, that you have clear transitions and separation between the colors, and you don't have an overly blue or yellow color cast with the colors. So that's good color balance. Everything's balanced. And if you look at the white, the idea is you don't want the white to be overly blue or overly yellow. you want a neutral white where it just looks plain white. And I've got it at 4150. Now, if you look here, I don't know if you guys can tell from the video, but the water is a little bit blue. And that's just a creative choice that I like to make. With these types of creek scenes, I like my water to be a little bit blue. Now let me show you. If I moved the slider over to the yellow a little bit more, I could take that blue out and make it look more like a neutral white. But creatively, I want to keep it a little bit on the blue side. I'm okay with it being a little bit blue. But it's still not overly blue to where there's a blue color cast. It's not affecting my color balance. It's just a little on the blue side. All right, so that's your temperature slider. Now let's go to the tint slider. The tint slider is the same principle. You have two main colors, except for with the tint slider, you have your green and your magenta. So if I go all the way to the green side, you have the green is dominating. It's bleeding over into all the colors. Again, there's no color separation. If I go to the right, all the way to the magenta side, you have the same problem with the magenta. So again, the idea is you want to balance these two colors out to where you get a nice neutral sweet spot. All right, so let's hold down Shift and left click on Tint. Lightroom wants to go up to +14, which looks good, but I'm actually going to go down to about +8. And the reason I want to do this is with these types of creek scenes, there's usually a lot of beautiful green. You have this lovely green moss. You have the beautiful green rhododendron leaves. So I want that green to stand out. So I'm going to push it to the left a little bit towards green. Now I want to show you, if I move to the right towards magenta, you'll notice it will dull the green. The green gets dull. And if I go too far, you have the magenta color cast. If I go to the left, it's going to preserve that green. That green's going to stand out. But if I go too far, you're going to have a green color cast. You always want to avoid that. But if I go to +8, it's still on the green side a bit, but it's not overly green and it's not overly magenta. All right, so that is my final white balance edit for this scene. And as you can see now, the colors are looking great. Everything looks balanced and nice. And now it's really easy to edit my colors. Now if I want to go down and do individual hue slider adjustments, I'm not going to get lost. Because I have good color separation, it's easy to see which colors are being affected by these hue sliders. You can see it affects the yellow specifically. It just becomes much easier to be able to make those adjustments, and that's what you want. So after I got my white balance set, my color editing was really easy. My colors are accurate. And the only thing that I did for this particular scene, I want to show you something here with the orange hue slider. I'm going to take the orange hue slider all the way down to the left. Now this is obviously what you don't want. If you go too far, the orange turns red. It looks pretty funky. But I want to show you guys that there is orange in this scene. If I take it way down, you can clearly see where the orange is. So the idea is I want the orange to stand out a little bit more against the yellow. So that's why I'm moving the slider down. But I'm not going to overdo it. I'm going to go down to maybe -18 to where you can see that orange, but it's not too much. So there you go. That's all I did. And you can see how easy the color editing is after you set that white balance properly. So now I want to give you a couple of examples where it's okay to have a significant color cast. With this white balance edit right here, it's pretty neutral. The water is a little bit blue, but it's still pretty neutral, and there's a little bit more green maybe, but it's a pretty basic neutral. There's not a strong color cast either way. But now I want to show you where it's okay to have a significant color cast. So I'm going to take you to a nighttime scene. This photo was taken at Lake Junaluska near Waynesville, North Carolina. And this photo was taken significantly after sunset. This is during the blue hour. And during that blue hour after sunset, things are naturally going to look blue for that time of day. So this is a case where it's okay to preserve that blue color cast. So I want to show you something here. This will help explain it better. I'm going to zoom into the Lake Junaluska Conference Center. I know that this building during the day is white. It's painted white. So if I wanted to make this neutral white, I would have to push the temperature slider way up towards the yellow. I would really have to add a lot of yellow to cancel out that blue to make it look more neutral white. And technically, this may be a good white balance. But if I zoom out, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look good or natural for this type of scene. So I don't want a technically accurate white balance. So I'm going to go back to my in-camera. So again, I'm going to preserve that blue cast, that blue color cast. Now it is very strong blue. So I am going to make the creative decision to warm it up a little bit. But I'm not going to go too far because I want to preserve that blue color cast. All right, so let's see what Lightroom wants to do with the tint slider. I'm going to hold down Shift, left click on tint. Lightroom wants to go from +9 way up to +30. And this is something that it's important to know with your nighttime and your sunset and your sunrise type skies. It will often look good to add magenta. Now, it will not look good to add green, but if you look online with landscape photographers, you'll notice that a lot of photographers will add magenta to those skies. That's because it will typically look nice. So I'm going to push it towards the magenta side, but not too much. I don't like to overdo it. So maybe +22. All right, so there's my final white balance edit for this blue hour nighttime scene. Now let's give you an example of your typical golden hour sunset. Let's click on this. So this is a particular scene, again, the golden hour sunset, where it's going to look natural to have a significant yellow color cast, because during that time of the day, that's how it's naturally going to look. So here's my in-camera white balance for this scene. Let's see what Lightroom wants to do with the temperature. I'm going to hold down Shift, left click on temp. Lightroom wants to push it up to 5150, which is looking better, but I'm actually going to push it up even further. And how far you want to push it to the right is just personal taste. I mean, there's no right or wrong with this. I'm going to go up to about 5700 or so. And now you can see definitely there's a significant yellow color cast, but it looks great. It looks like that beautiful golden hour sunset. So let me show you before and after again. This is in camera where it's significantly more blue, but I'm going to warm it up significantly. And there you go. Now you get that beautiful glow. Let's see what Lightroom wants to do with the tint slider. Hold down Shift, left click. It actually wants to go from +21 to +18. And here, let me show you again. This is important to realize. Again, if I go too far to the green side, it's going to look awful. You don't want that. But again, the sunset skies will often look good with some magenta. Now with this particular scene, I don't think it looks good with a whole lot of magenta. So I'm still going to keep it on the, not go too far to the right with the magenta, maybe +22. So there you go. There's my final white balance edit for this golden hour sunset. All right, let me do a quick recap for you. So when you're in the field, always make sure you shoot in RAW and you set your white balance to automatic, let your camera decide what the white balance is going to be. That's going to save you time. And then once you upload that file to Lightroom, the first thing you want to do before you do any color editing when you upload that raw file is set that white balance. It's going to make things so much easier for you. And with these types of creek scenes, if you're like me, you may want to creatively decide to keep that water a little bit blue, but of course you don't have to. It's just personal taste. And you may want to edge things a little towards the green side to preserve the beautiful greens without overdoing it, but you still have a good color balance. And with your nighttime blue hour scene, it's going to look good to preserve that blue color cast. So that's when it's okay. And with your golden hour sunset, it's going to look fine to have a yellow color cast for this particular time of day. All right, so that's it, guys. I hope this was helpful to you. Good luck with all your editing and creative endeavors. I hope you guys have a fun time learning. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so you can see new videos as they come out. And I'll see you next time.